Okay, welcome everybody to another edition of Unstoppable REI, and I'm here today with Becky Nova, just like the car. Now, you said just like the car. What's funny about that is I am not a car person, so that really didn't register with me, and I almost lost it. So I was like, okay, I better, So anyway, cool. So as I mentioned to you before we started, I'm super excited about talking to so many successful women real estate entrepreneurs. It's phenomenal because I knew you guys were out there. I just, it just seems like industry is sort of dominated by men, but we want to change that.
I
So
agree.
yeah, so anyway, so let's get started with just you tell me, give me your 30-second elevator pitch or your 40-minute elevator pitch or just tell me how it all started. All right. Well, how did it all come together?
Sure. So I always explain myself as a cancer researcher by day and a real estate investor by night.
No way. Okay.
Yeah. I fell into real estate, as many people do, back in 2018.
Okay.
My husband is from the Dominican Republic,
Okay.
and he really moved to the United States with the American dream.
Okay.
I wanted no part of that. Being from here, I've actually have lived in Spain, where I used to own a tour company. I lived in
Really?
Portugal, where I used to own a bar. I used to have a bus that took people from Spain to Portugal. I
Okay.
was ready to move,
Yeah.
explore. My husband wanted to put down roots and get that white picket fence. So as
Okay.
you do in relationships, you compromise.
Yes.
We decided, fine, we'd buy a property here in New York where we live. And I said, you know what? It's so expensive here. I'm not going to be in a position where I'm living mortgage payment to mortgage payment. I
Yeah.
always told everybody that I came up with the best idea ever, which was to buy a multifamily, live in one side, rent out the other.
Genius.
And thank you. That's what I said.
Yes.
Um, and the first property we bought, once we got to the closing table, I was 100% hooked
Okay.
on this whole strategy. I told everybody in the room, that's it, I'm buying more property. They all laughed, and I said, I'm going to figure out a way. And over the past 3 years, we've bought 12 more units between New
Nice.
York and the Dominican Republic. Um,
Okay.
and now I run a community called Lady Landlords, which helps over 30,000 women be also able to get themselves involved and grow as real estate investors. So it's been
Okay.
a wild few years.
That's fantastic. Okay, so you hit me with a lot of stuff. First of all, you've done all kinds of stuff. Okay, and I'm like trying to just figure out which one I want to zero in on. And you're hitting. I mean, you're from New York. I guess I didn't even realize that. So here's the thing. I'm not going to talk about myself. This is all about you. But my wife and I are empty nesters. Okay, our
Mhm.
last of four children just graduated from college, and so we're like looking for a place to live. We're in Minnesota, but we hate the cold. But so the criteria is warmth and culture. Okay, so
Okay.
on the culture side, we absolutely love New York. New York is at the top of the list, but it's so
Not on the
cold.
cold side.
Yeah, but so I don't know. So warmth is first, culture second, but we'll take I don't know. We have to figure out the right combination. But you're from New York, so I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. All right, so we're gonna have to talk more about that. And 30,000 women, that's phenomenal. How long have you? I mean, how long have you been running that organization?
Rufus, 2 years.
Is that right?
It started in the pandemic. Remember back, I'm sure you probably blocked out of your memory, March 2020, over here in New York and a lot
Yeah,
of other places, people got sent home
yeah.
from their jobs. We were all being sent home, closing down. My
Okay.
husband comes home. He's like, hey, babe, my job's closed. I'm out of work.
Wow.
Got to figure out something. I said, yeah, we got to buy another property. My husband goes, Becky, I just said I lost my job. I said,
Right, no money.
exactly.
Right, right.
We got to buy another property. To me, that just made sense. The
Yeah,
world does not guarantee us, our jobs do not guarantee us money, income,
yeah.
salaries. You got to do it yourself and you got to create it.
Right,
So as my husband's shaking his head, walking away from me to go slam, their bedroom door or whatever,
right, right.
I said, you know what? There's got to be other women out there that are thinking like I am.
Okay,
I just got to find them. So I started a Facebook group
okay.
called Lady Landlords. I figured it'd be like me and my mommy, like in there hanging out.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I got a membership request and a membership
Nice.
request and a membership request.
I love
And
it.
we have over 1,000 women join us on a monthly basis.
That is crazy. And here's something else that's phenomenal that you mentioned about having the first purchase be an investment property. Now I are multifamily, right?
Right.
I heard that from someone a long, long time ago, and I thought it was a genius plan, and I've been talking about it ever since. But that's like I'm telling all my kids the same thing. Your first property, this we're going to buy because that's I mean, how cool is it? How smart is that?
It's what's weird, Rufus. I didn't actually realize that until literally I started Lady Landlords and we kind of got into like my story more.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about the fact that I actually grew up in a multifamily house.
Did you? Okay.
Yes, it was actually when my great grandfather came to this country,
Okay.
they actually built a little, like a little beach house,
Okay.
right outside the city, and it was a little cabin. And then all of a sudden, what we do in a lot of Hispanic countries is you tend to live with your family, so you need more
Yeah,
space for
sure.
them. So you kind of
Yeah.
add on different units. So that's
Okay.
what my family did. Was then
Gotcha.
they said, okay, well now that the family's growing, we got to add another layer for more family. So we ended up with, I grew up in a triplex,
Wow.
which was my whole family. I grew up luckily with my grandmother, and then
Okay.
we had renters in the basement, and I hated them. My
Okay.
grandmother had to shut down renting out the basement because I did not like these tenants, oddly enough. And then here we are today, and this is now
Wow.
what I help other people do.
That is so cool. Okay, so we're gonna have this is gonna be multi episode adventure here. So tell me, what do you wish you would have known when you started your career? What's something you wish you would have known?
In real estate investing,
Yeah.
I wish I had done it sooner.
Okay. So how long have you been doing it all
100%.
together now? How many years?
4 years.
Okay.
I bought my first duplex in 2018. I
Okay.
wish, and I mentioned, back in my 20s, I was really burnt out from cancer research
Okay.
and living in New York City. It was just the hustle and bustle, and I was making a
Sure.
good living, but it
Yeah.
was all going to living in such a high cost of living place.
Yeah.
So I'd actually quit and moved to Europe completely on a whim.
Okay.
And I now wish, looking back on it, that I had bought a property back then and
Okay.
had that fund my move to Europe.
That makes sense. Sure. Sure. But hindsight is always 2020, right? I mean,
Right.
always. Yeah. But how cool is that? Wow, that's great. All right, so and my mind is racing. 'Cause I'm thinking about all the different things you said. Tour bus, you did all these different things. So let me ask you this: what was your biggest failure? And I know that everybody has a different viewpoint. I mean, I don't fail. I whatever fail forward, whatever. But what was your biggest failure, and what did you learn from that?
All right. So you're right. I don't see this as a failure.
Yeah,
but
right. I understand that.
Whenever
Yeah.
I tell people this story, they always are like, "Oh my God, how did you come back from that?" So I'll share that.
Okay. Yes.
So
do I need popcorn? This sounds like this is gonna be a.
Oh, you kind of need that. Maybe a cup of tea.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
We'll make it quick here.
All
So
right.
my tour company in Spain was actually wildly successful.
Okay.
It was still to this date, even with my real estate business, it was the most successful thing I think I've ever done.
Wow.
We were in multiple cities, multiple tours. I had a large staff. It was fantastic. And I
Okay.
expanded into Portugal and I bought a bar there.
Okay.
The bar I bought, though, was a really bad business decision. I ended up having to be in a place where I was kind of scrambling, trying to manage my tour company in Spain and living in Portugal. I was actually renting. I was a landlord's dream. I was renting apartments in 2 countries.
Wow.
And I was only there half the time because I was going back and forth between the 2 countries every week. But I came to a point where I had to make a decision on which business I really wanted to move forward with. And unfortunately, I picked the bar in Portugal. And then I gave up my tour company in Spain. And it was a disaster. I lost 6 figures and I lost 6 figures fast.
Wow.
I ended up getting screwed over by the guy I bought the bar from. Now that's actually a story that's best told over like beer and maybe some tequila. So we'll save that one for another day.
Let's do it.
But I ended up losing the bar and I ended up cooking for another restaurant, making €3 an hour. And all the pasta I could eat.
Wow.
So I did that, partied for the rest of the summer in this nice little beach town in Portugal.
Okay.
And then I moved home to now that multifamily house where my parents were living when I was like 30 years old, totally in debt, horrible credit, and really having to start over from zero.
Wow. You have lots of stuff, lots of stuff going on, but I love it. So, I mean, what happened? I mean, so what you left this like a cliffhanger.
Rufus, when you move into your parents' house, your parents' basement at 30,
yeah,
you have a lot of motivation to get out.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Go for it.
So then I said, you know what? I got to figure out what I'm going to do next, and you got to do that quick. And what I ended up doing was I actually went back into cancer research. I actually
Okay.
started a medical consulting company.
Okay.
Honestly, that was years of hustling, Rufus. Every penny I made was going back into my business.
Okay.
Also, a story that's best told over tequila. I ended up calling one of my ex-boyfriends.
Oh boy.
I moved back in with him for a free place to stay.
Oh
To
boy.
get out of my
Okay.
parents' house.
Right.
But don't live with your exes. That's one of the best pieces of advice anybody on this show will get.
Okay.
Do not live with your ex. But it really then was kind of this restarting of what I was going to do. And it was actually when I met my husband, my now husband,
Yeah.
that I was still struggling with my medical consulting company, trying to get
Okay.
that off the ground. And it was really him that kind of said, hey, babe, like, I want to get serious about you. I want to start thinking forward, but like, you don't have any money and you got a horrible credit score.
Yeah.
And, I want to be able to do all these great things. And once again, him coming to this country,
Yeah.
he really made a great life for himself. He was an amazing saver, very financially savvy. And I kind of had to say, hey, listen, Becky, you got to become a little financially literate if you want
Sure.
to keep this man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I did. So I actually went out. I was able to get a contract back in cancer research. That was a
Okay.
short term, but they paid me great money to do it for the short period of time.
Okay.
And it gave me enough money to get myself out of debt and to save my half of a down payment for that first property.
Nice. Nice. Wow. You have lived an amazing life. You got all kinds of, okay. I love it. Absolutely love it. So what advice would you give to somebody that says, hey, you know what? I want to get involved in real estate. I mean, I want to do what you're doing. Yeah, I want to get paid in pasta. I mean, so what advice would you give them?
Sure. For people that are looking to get started,
Yeah.
I feel like there's really kind of two things that you need to do.
Okay.
One, you need to think of your end goal first.
Okay.
I feel that's where most investors kind of go wrong, is they start seeing what everybody else is doing. And they're like, oh, this person's flipping. Oh, this person's buy and holding. Oh, this person's wholesaling.
Sure.
And they kind of just start chasing the shiny object. But we all have different goals we want to get to.
Right.
My goal, Rufus, is to go living down in the Dominican Republic and drink my pina coladas throughout the day. That's what I would like to do. That means that for me, flipping properties might not be the best thing to do, right?
Okay,
Managing contractors, I'd either have to be there in person,
Sure.
or that's dealing with headaches, or you can do it long distance, but that's a whole different skill.
Yeah.
I want something a little more passive than that.
Okay.
So instead of me just sitting there being like, oh, look at all these checks this person's putting up on Instagram of what they're making from flips,
Yeah.
you need to think about what it is that you really want to kind of get to and build your portfolio. And then step two is to educate yourself on what you should actually be doing as action steps to put yourself in the direction of your specific goal, not anybody else's goal.
Sure. Well, and to that point, leads to my next question. What resources have you found to be the most useful? And if you had to name maybe the top, maybe top 3 resources that have helped you along the way, what would they be?
Sure. So I have a good answer to this and a bad answer to this.
Okay.
I'll start with the bad answer. One of my biggest problems is actually I really struggled with finding good resources.
Okay. All right.
After I closed on that first property, I went, like I said, I told my broker, my lender, everybody that I was going to buy another property. Like I said, they all thought I was crazy. You just closed on a property in New York. You can't buy another one. And I said, I'm going to. And I did. But to go out on that educational kind of path, I got to be honest, you have people pulling you in so many different directions.
Yeah.
It's very hard to figure out what is really the next best step for you. And 2 things actually happen. One, that's actually why I'm always that person. If you can't find something that helps you, well, that's the universe telling you that you need to be the one to create it, right?
Yes, for sure.
Literally, I build Lady Landlords to have the resources that I wish that I had had.
Yeah.
And 2, the other thing you got to do is you got to get out and network. That's where all the rest came from.
Okay.
Because then I was able to find other people that had been there, that had done that were able to then guide me on what I was looking for. Now I got the answers that I needed. It wasn't just generic podcast of, hey, how, Johnny bought 50 units in Iowa. That ain't helping me over here in New York.
Yeah.
Right. So really getting out there and networking and seeing what other people were doing to stay inspired when times get tough, but also to then be able to get some of those answers to your questions of what other strategies people are using that then you can employ.
Yeah.
And then who are they using? right? I wouldn't
Nice.
know all those vendors. Oh,
Yeah.
you have a great contractor? Now I want your great contractor.
Right.
So networking was really the way that I feel that I've been able to kind of propel my business forward is by connecting with other wonderful people that are also in this industry.
Sure. I love that. And something else I love about what you said is that, people are flashing huge checks on Instagram and Facebook but if that's not your thing, if that's not what drives you, I mean, you have to have your own personal reason why.
Right.
And like you said, based on where I am in my life and my family, whatever, I need something maybe that's more passive. I'm not going to be out there. So it's good. So find out what works best for you. I love that. And
Right.
yeah, that's fantastic. Now that brings another question to mind. What about like people who have influenced you? People, do you have mentors? I mean, if you named, I don't know, maybe the top, maybe two or three um, people that have been the
Sure.
biggest influence for you. Yeah.
Sure. Actually, probably the biggest influence I've had is my realtor.
Oh, really?
My realtor's name's Michael Torello.
Okay.
So at the time, my husband and I were living in the Bronx, down by Yankee Stadium, actually, if anybody knows the area. And we decided that was the area we were going to look to
Okay.
buy our first multifamily. And I called up Rufus. If I called one, I called 50 different realtors.
Wow.
And I asked them questions, trying to find the right person for us. And nobody wanted to talk to me. They either were, one, go get pre-approved, then call us back.
Okay.
And I was like, but who do I call to get pre-approved? But they already hung up on me.
Wow.
So that didn't really help me out.
Sure.
Or then when I did get pre-approved, I even called back some of those realtors and they said, yeah, cool. Just go on Zillow, pick out a house, and then let me know which one you want to buy. And I was like, but I have questions.
Yeah.
I've never done this before. No one would communicate with me.
Wow.
So I reached out to a friend's mom who I knew was a realtor upstate New York. And I said, can I just pay you to ask some questions? I can't find anybody down here in the Bronx that'll talk to me. And she goes, actually, we have a realtor in our office that's from the Bronx.
Okay.
He works with a lot of first-time home buyers. Let me put you guys in touch. And we drove to upstate New York in the freezing cold, as you were referencing here, to go meet him that day.
Okay.
And he just sat down with us at a table and gave us his time.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, this is different. So we ended up not only buying that first property, but we've now actually bought 4 multifamilies from him in New York in the past 4 years.
That's fantastic.
And he is sometimes he's the first person I talk to in the morning and the last person I talk to at night. But he is a great sounding board. And he's somebody that just is there that can not only listen, but then provide practical solutions that I can take.
Yeah.
And sometimes having somebody that's just willing to kind of listen to you
Sure.
is worth their weight. So
Sure,
he's
that's
been
huge.
absolutely a great mentor to me.
Okay. What about, can you think of one or two more? Who he's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Actually, one of the most interesting people that's become a mentor to me was my home inspector.
Really?
My home inspector,
Okay.
we met, he flips his own homes.
Okay.
So it was helpful to have him
Oh, sure.
as now we were buying more rental properties because he could see it as an investor, not
Yeah.
as my forever home.
Yeah.
So we kind of connected over that. And I knew that since the pandemic, like many New Yorkers, he was down in Florida.
Yeah.
Well, I went last winter and decided I was tired of the snow here too. And I was going to go live in Florida for about 3 months.
Okay.
So I called him up and I said, hey, do you have any extra? I know you have rentals. Do you have anyone available? I'm coming down. I'd rather rent from you than somebody else.
Yeah.
So I was able to go down. He had like kind of a mother-in-law suite on his own home. So he said, you can have it. Like, just come down and stay. I did not realize also owns like multiple businesses.
Wow.
He is very, very real estate savvy and had really been in the real estate game much longer than I'd expected. So it was really great to see somebody that had such an established portfolio.
Yeah.
And had built his business as an entrepreneur, not with the W-2 where you just send that into your mortgage broker, but really having to get creative.
Yeah.
And that I thought was very, very unique. So
yeah, that makes a huge difference. Go ahead.
That's another person that I just love the fact that there's people that you can really build relationships with, that you can pick up the phone and ask some questions to.
What's great about that is that home inspector, that's not typical. Home inspectors are almost like deal killers. And that's been my experience as a real estate broker. They just, that's really surprising. That's great. I mean, it's like, that's a real hidden benefit. I love that.
And he did. There was one deal. It's like my white elephant. It was like that one property that I loved.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of like,
It's
This
not gonna
thing's
work.
got structural problems.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got to walk away. And I was like, ah, kills me.
And you
I
took his
feel, I think
advice.
I did. And it was the absolute
Yeah.
right decision, 100%. And
Sure.
because I trust him. I trust him and I know that. But like, it's still that one house. I recently bought another duplex that had like a structural issue.
Okay.
And I called him and I was like, wait, are we talking like structural issue, like my white elephant? Or are we talking like a simple structural? And he's like, no. He goes, Becky, this will cost you like less than $1,000 to fix.
Wow.
That I was afraid your house was going to fall down.
Yeah,
It
big
was like,
difference. Big difference. Yeah.
all right then.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Nice. So, what would you say is a one common myth that you can debunk in real estate that people, just one common myth?
There's so many.
There are a ton. Yes.
I feel like a lot of people feel that you need to kind of be like older white man with a trust fund to be in real estate investing.
Good point.
And listen, does that probably make it easier? Yes, that probably makes everything easier.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think we'd all agree to that.
Yeah.
But what I actually really like about real estate investing is I feel that there's a way to get involved for everyone.
Yeah.
There's a way to get involved if you have money, if you don't have money. You know, I feel like if you don't have money, you got to have some time and some hustle.
Yeah.
And everybody else kind of falls somewhere in between.
Sure.
But I almost feel like it's an interesting equalizer. And I feel like people also don't realize that there's more to real estate investing than just buying a rental and holding it for the rest of your life. There's more than just flipping. You could buy notes. You can be a private lender. You know, there's
a ton.
So many things that you can actually do. And we just got to really kind of look outside the box a little bit. But it's really a great opportunity for kind of anybody to kind of get involved in, right? None of us are learning real estate investing in college here.
All right.
So, you know, it's really something that we just got to kind of figure out the way. It's like playing with a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
But everyone can really like show up to the table.
Well, sure. And I think if you are looking at it as you're solving a problem. I mean, to me, money is just a reward for solving a problem. And so that's what you are as a real estate investor. You're really solving a real estate problem. I kind of like to look at it like you are either helping someone to, maybe they need to sell a house to either prevent a problem or, you know, solve a problem. And it may be the house is causing it, or maybe the person that's having an issue. I mean, so, and like you said, and I kind of like to look at it as being a real estate entrepreneur, not necessarily an investor, because like you said, there's so many different aspects of problem solving within that, you know, that has a piece of property attached to it is huge. So so before I ask you the last question, and I've been enjoying this and we definitely have to do this again, okay? How can people connect with you? How can they, you mentioned a couple of the organizations that you have. Yeah, tell me about that.
That identify as female, you can come find us on Facebook at Lady Landlords.
Okay.
For everyone else, you can either find me on Instagram at Becky Nova 24, or we have a Lady Landlords podcast and a Lady Landlords YouTube channel, so you can find me all over.
Okay, nice. I love it. So the whole reason for me starting this podcast, obviously the Unstoppable REI, is the idea that if you Google the term real estate investor failure rate, there's like, you know, we have a huge failure rate. It's like 95% of real estate investors fail. You obviously are in that top 5%. So I wanted to find out, what are you doing? So I guess two questions. Number one, how would you define unstoppable? Okay. Number two, what are you doing or have been doing to make yourself unstoppable where failure is concerned in an industry with such a high failure rate? Tell me about that.
Sure. The way that I would define unstoppable would really be to describe somebody that just has the drive to really follow through.
Okay.
And that comes from, if you've ever read Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, or listen to his TED Talk. Oh my God.
Okay.
Rufus, go pick up that book, or I'm going to send you a copy.
Yes.
Because Start With Why by Simon Sinek, it really talks about kind of the motivation between our actions.
Okay.
You need, just like I said before, you need to start with, why do you want to be a real estate investor?
Sure.
Are you looking to just make a couple $100 to cover your car payment?
Yeah.
Are you looking to leave your job in 5 to 10 years? You're looking to build an empire and quit tomorrow.
Right.
Those all take different strategies.
Sure.
But you need to start with your why of why this is even important to you. Because you know what? Some days are going to be great. Some days are going to suck.
That's
So
right.
if you don't know what your motivation is for these things,
Okay.
you're going to burn out and you're just going to quit and not enjoy it. So for you, Rufus, for any of your listeners, Start With Why is definitely a book I would recommend. And that just will really make sure to get you clear on the drive that you have.
Okay.
And that's going to make you unstoppable.
Gotcha.
What makes me unstoppable is one, not only that drive to go live in my beach down in the Dominican Republic,
Okay.
but what actually is my best asset is that I have the ability to take that jump. I have that ability to take that leap. Now, listen, I'm not jumping off like cliffs here.
Sure,
I'm
sure.
making calculated
Yeah.
moves. So that's where I mentioned before that it's important to, one, know what your end goal is. What are we actually working towards? But then two, you need that education.
Okay.
To really make yourself that unstoppable is to then be able to have the confidence in yourself to say, hey, I now know what I'm trying to get to. I now have the education I need. Next thing I got to do is take that leap.
I take the leap, yeah. And like you said, also, and I know why I'm doing it. So add all those three together, and yeah, and the drive to move forward. I love that. I have had so much. I've learned so much hanging out with you. And you know what? I just started to hear the New York accent a little bit. I didn't hear it before.
You haven't asked me to say coffee yet. That's
But I love it. I love it. So let's we'll have to do this again, and maybe we can talk specifically about maybe some landlord issues. I don't know. There's so much stuff that I think we talk about. What if somebody wants to start a tour company in another country? I mean, I don't know.
I'm your girl.
There's lots of stuff. Well, thanks very much, and be sure to send me some of your links and stuff so that I can I can post them, and then we'll talk again real soon. Okay?
Sounds good, Rufus. Thanks so much for having me on today.
And no problem. Talk to you later. Bye bye.
Bye.